Hello, my name is Ashley Parks, and I'm a credit cards editor for Bankrate, and I'm here today to talk with Dave. How are you today, Dave?
I'm doing good, thanks.
Awesome, so glad you're here. So just have a few questions for you about your experience with national debt relief and
Sure.
that whole thing. So what would you say were your thoughts or your feelings about debt before you started on your journey with national debt relief?
I think that I sort of grew up with this idea that, people who carried credit card debt from month to month were somehow irresponsible in some way. Of course, once I became an adult and started carrying my own balance from month to month, started to develop that empathy, towards people who were in that situation. My opinion there definitely changed because I never saw myself as irresponsible. I saw it basically as, I was using my credit cards for daily living expenses, and then would occasionally have some sort of emergency, car needs new tires or what so have you. It just gets to a point where, you're unable to make those monthly payments to bring that balance down. And you start to accrue interest and it just sort of snowballs.
Gotcha. So would you say that your perspective shifted at all with working with national debt relief?
Absolutely. So as a client of National Debt Relief, the biggest sense that I got was that I wasn't alone.
So what would you say are some of the hardships that contributed to your debt situation?
I had been carrying a balance on the credit cards for a while. And what really, sealed the deal for me in terms of needing outside help was really the start of the pandemic. I was trying to start a business at the time, which was not pandemic friendly. I was also working at a brewery, also not a very pandemic friendly job. So once I got laid off from there during lockdown, really, hit that wall where, what am I going to do to try to get these accounts taken care of?
And did your experiences or did your debt situation affect kind of your day-to-day life and things that you would do like on a daily basis?
Absolutely. So I think that it's really important to note that when you're carrying a lot of credit card debt, there's an emotional impact there. I mean, you just can't get around that. In terms of how it affected my emotional state day to day, it really was one of those things where you have all of this anxiety every time you make a purchase. Because when you get to the situation that I was in, where the interest payments are so much on the credit cards, you're throwing your whole paycheck at the cards to try to get it down. But then you have to use the credit cards for daily living expenses. And so, every time you go to buy something at the store, it's that little pang of anxiety, like, did I really need this? Is this the best choice for me to be making right now? At the same time, it's also, you have to acknowledge that when you buy something that you like, you feel good. And so that really is that cycle of, you get to a point where every purchase that you make, you are hypercritical of yourself, but at the same time, you still make them.
The little things start becoming really big things all of a
Exactly.
sudden. So what were some of the options that you considered before you found national debt relief?
I think that a lot of people are in the same situation that I was in at the beginning, where, every month you have that talk with yourself, where this is going to be the month I'm going to be good, I'm going to make more than the minimum payment to the credit card, and, this is going to be the start of me taking care of the situation on my own. That doesn't always work very well. And of course, so once I had done that, of course, every month for several months, the next thing that I considered was a balance transfer. And so I tried to apply for a balance transfer with a company. They were offering no interest for 18 months. And I figured, okay, well, if I can move the balances, and consolidate them on this one card, I have no interest for 18 months. I can start to make some really good headway and then hopefully be in a better place where once the interest payments do start, they are not as high and it becomes, a little bit more manageable. Turns out that because my debt to income ratio was so high and my credit utilization was so high, I actually didn't really qualify for a balance transfer. So they, transferred $1,500 onto this new account, which I ended up going through anyways, because I figured, well, at least I'm not getting interest on this $1,500, so, I can start to do that at least.
Yeah.
But of course, that didn't really solve the problem. If you're just moving the money around to different pots, it doesn't ever go away.
And so how did you find out about national debt relief?
When I first started thinking like, okay, I need additional assistance beyond this, I need someone to help me with this. It started with just a simple Google search, debt relief options. They were the first option on Google. I saw that they were very well rated. So started doing a little bit of research, and once I made the call, was enrolled pretty much since then.
So, what was the process like for you as you went through your debt relief program? Did you have any feelings, any kind of certain emotions that came up, or things like that?
Absolutely. So I think especially in the beginning of the program, I felt a lot of guilt and shame about having to go through the process. And I think that that's pretty common too. And I think that's maybe why a lot of people, don't pursue this option, is because of that moral obligation, to pay back the creditors. And so, especially at the beginning, had a lot of those negative feelings basically directed inwardly, and then eventually I did have a conversation with an agent at National Debt Relief, sort of expressing these kind of feelings. And, one thing that they said to me that really stuck out was that, it's very likely that you've already paid more in interest than you ever borrowed from them. And that sort of started to unlock things in my mind where I was like, oh, okay, like, this is something that, maybe got out of hand, but now at least we have a solution.
Right.
We have a plan. This is not a unique situation, for one thing. And so, working with the company, being in those caring hands, I think really helped alleviate a lot of those feelings that I was having.
How would you say your life has changed after your experience with National Debt Relief?
I think the biggest thing, of course, is I'm debt-free now. So
Congratulations.
thank you. And so, not having that dark cloud hanging over your head is a complete game changer. I still find myself, I've been debt-free now for over a year, I still find myself in that same mentality that I was in. So I have to unlearn that and, realize that, now that I am in a debt-free situation, I have more funds now to be able to use as a tool to build the life that I'm trying to live.
More of an empowering kind of feeling.
Exactly.
For sure. So what advice would you give to anybody who is about to start on their own debt relief journey?
The biggest advice that I give is to start sooner rather than later. Even going through the program, I believe I was in the program for 38 months. It's a long process, and it's not an easy process necessarily. However, if not now, when?
Right.
The 38 months are going to pass regardless. So you might as well try to do everything you can to get completely debt-free.
Well, thank you, Dave. This has been great. And if you want more information about personal finance, or information on National Debt Relief itself, check out Bankrate.com.